Welcome to Devlog 1 of RPSurvive, a practice game that we're making to help us in the upcoming Pirates of Our Game Jam. We're gonna get quite some stuff done in this video. The first thing on the agenda was a simple knockback effect when enemies bump into the player. As you can see, the first implementation didn't quite have the desired effect as the player keeps teleporting around. After I figured out how to implement the knockback properly, I encountered another fun bug. Yeah, physics. This one is easy to solve, as we just need to set the linear damping on the player's rigid body to a positive value. And that looks good. Even though this is quite a simple feature, there are many nuances that come into play and potentially introduce bugs. For example, my player was turning invincible multiple times in a row, which caused a weird game state. And also, I disabled collisions while the player is in the hurt state, so that you can move through enemies. But you don't want the player to be able to move through walls as well. So yeah, I'm just trying to say that there's a lot to think about. But we're moving on. The player needs a reward for defeating enemies. And I made it so tiny XP orbs fall from enemies when they die. It didn't feel quite satisfying yet, so I decided to create a small animation to make it appear like the orbs drop to the ground. And yeah, it's still not AAA, but it did make me a lot happier. Behind the scenes, the artists have also been busy, and it's about time to import our first animation. I'm embarrassed to admit, but I spent a full 4.5 minutes doing basic calculations to try and get these 32 pixel squares centered. But when I succeeded, it looked glorious. For the scissor sprite, we want the enemy to always face the player like a missile that is homing in. On the first attempt, I managed to rotate the object into another dimension, because Quaternions are impossible to work with. But after a few more tries, I got it to work as intended. I really like how it looks when they are all trying to swarm you like that. To create a bit more variety, I gave the enemies a chance to mutate. To be more precise, there's now a 5% chance that an enemy will be bigger, slower, and beefier, and a 5% chance that it will be smaller and faster. Next, I worked a bit on UI, and this is never my favorite part, but it's really important to get right. For now, I just set the health and the XP bar. To end things off, I want to showcase some improvements to the pathfinding that I worked on in the last video. First of all, enemies can now traverse tight spaces much better, but what improved the most is the performance. How I had it set up before was that every enemy would use the main thread to run the pathfinding algorithm. If there are too many enemies, this will cause lag spikes. Now, the pathfinding runs on a background thread, which eliminates lag completely. Instead of hogging the main thread, individual enemies will now just idle for a few frames while they are calculating their path in the background. And that's all for this video. For next time, you can look forward to more art and animations, and we're going to integrate Fmod into Unity to get started with music. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.